creating a safe environment in which to work. Joining us as we look at the effective legal frameworks for building the digital economy is a workshop on, which concludes today, is Rodney Taylor, who is the Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, a familiar face to us, and Vashti Maharaj, who is Advisor Digital Trade Policy in the Trade, Oceans and Natural Resources Directorate of the Commonwealth Secretariat. To both of you, I say good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome indeed. Rodney, I'll start with you. Let's take a look, because more so now we're hearing a lot more of cyber attacks and cyber threats. How timely is this workshop?
It's very timely, and in fact, we were pleased to have the opening remarks given by the Attorney General, who took the Honorable Dale Marshall, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, who took the opportunity to announce that Barbados will soon be tabling cybersecurity legislation, and that is very timely. It is the essence of the workshop is about the kind of legislation that we need if we want to build digital economies. It is a regional workshop, by the way. We are also joined by an Attorney General from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and a number of stakeholders from around the region. So the issue of cybersecurity, it needs a strong legislative framework to indicate what kinds of activities are illegal, what is allowed, what is not allowed, and what recourse you have in law if, in fact, there is a breach of your systems.
From where you sit as Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, what are some of the concerns, what are some of the situations that come to your attention that would propel this particular workshop?
Well, our concern as a regional organization is that there's harmonization across the board within CARICOM on these same legislative frameworks. So on cybersecurity, it is not just enough for Barbados to have strong legislation, but we want to ensure that there's strong legislation across CARICOM. Trinidad, Jamaica, and all the others have similar legislation, so that as you move within the common space, the single market and economy, or what we're now calling as well, from our perspective, a single ICT space, that there's commonality around cybersecurity, around data protection, around this telecommunications legislation that permits, the use of telecommunication services and so on. So harmonization is very important to us because it drives down the cost of doing business for those companies that are operating in the space.
This workshop, Rodney, is a collaboration with the CARICOM Commonwealth Secretariat, the Commonwealth Secretariat. What is it that led to this association, and why now? This connection.
Well, we have thank you. We have a long-standing history of working with the Commonwealth Secretariat. Go back for many years, not just the CTU, not just the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, but other institutions in the region have benefited from their membership within the Commonwealth, the Commonwealth Secretariat in particular, that drives the implementation of the programs for the Commonwealth Secretariat. So we have collaborated before on developing national strategies and so on. In this particular case, Vashti reached out to me. She's also National Trinidad and Tobago, as she will tell you. And so the collaboration is strong, and this is the first of two workshops that we will have for this year. We will continue working together because we have sort of mutual interests. They're working at the level of the Commonwealth, of which Barbados is a part, and we are working at the level of the Caribbean.
That's where you come in, Vashti Maharaj from Trinidad. You are one of the advisors of digital trade policy. More and more, we are moving what we do into the digital space, but that comes fraught with all sorts of dangers. What are some of the areas that you are tackling in this workshop?
Thank you. Well, this workshop looks at the entire digital economy and the legal foundations that go together in building that enabling environment for trade and investment. And people must have confidence in doing business online and going online and communicating. As such, we're looking at cybercrime and cybersecurity, as Rodney had mentioned, data protection, electronic transactions, digital finance and e-money, and even the licensing elements of it, intellectual property, consumer protection, so very important, and distribution, competition, as well as the elements of telecommunications. So it's a very wide scope that we're looking at, and as such, we're very, very, very lucky to have the leading international experts from UNCITRAL, UNCDF, the International Chamber of Commerce, British Standards Institute, yes, Commonwealth Secretariat, as well as within CARICOM itself, such as CARICOM impacts and the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. So participants within the workshop, as well as online, we have had over 100 persons participate online, have been able to share their views and engage in knowledge exchange in relation to these topic areas.
The framework will always be chasing those who have deviant intentions. So how broad can a framework be? How specific can it truly be so that you're able to protect what you're simply doing on the digital space?
Well, this is where I'm going to have to put on my lawyer hat and legislative drafting hats in my former life working as the director to the Attorney General in Trinidad and Tobago. And I will tell you something. Technology is always going to be more advanced than the legislation. So you're never going to try to create legislation that is a catch-all. What you want to do is create technology neutral law so that as fast as new and emerging threats occur, your legislative framework is broad enough to be able to capture your present and even future potentialities. Because as we all know, new and emerging technologies are happening every day. It is changing our trading space, our learning environment, and the way we do business online every day.
Is it behavior that causes these threats and causes the need to have these frameworks, or is it simply regulation?
Well, this goes down to the basis of why we need laws in the first place. And as my colleague in CARICOM Impacts indicated, the key and critical element in cybercrime is people, because you won't have cybercrime unless you have people perpetrating financial crimes and also people in the space. But the truth about it is that it's a double-edged sword. You want people to conduct business online, to do business, to feel confident about operating in the space. But as fast as technology can evolve and things can become more convenient, is as fast as criminal activity comes into place. And this happens both online as well as in person. So what happens is that we aim to create an environment where you build trust and confidence by catering not just for protections and putting in place protections, but also catering for convenience.
Catering for convenience and catering for protection. I know that's part of what you two at the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, you're doing, Mr. Taylor. Let's talk a little bit about ensuring that the framework really is solid. What are the testings? What are the methods that you're using to ensure that it's robust and capable of trapping what we need to trap?
Well, we generally work with international best practice. We have the benefit, again, of working with the Commonwealth Secretariat. So many countries have had these bits and pieces of legislation for a long time. We learn from what has gone before and we pull out the best elements and we look at what is suitable for us here in the Caribbean based on our system of law. But of course, really, you test legislation in a court of law. So when something happens and you have to seek recourse, then you see how strong the legislation is based on the outcome of any sort of court case. So we hope, of course, that that we are able to develop strong legislation based on the international best practice, working with organizations like the International Telecommunications Union, like the Commonwealth Secretariat, and others that help us to build strong and robust legislation.
What are the next steps coming out of the workshop? What do you expect then those participants to go back to their respective territories and seek to do?
Well, we're having, and Vashti can give you greater detail, because we have some workshops today, well, started yesterday, and we have groups working together to build some like real world scenarios, look at some potential cases and come up with recommendations from there that we can go back and implement at the national level. Because one of the things we are very adamant about is that we want to not just talk about these legislative frameworks, but we want to see that there's implementation at the national level. And that is the outcome we expect today, that we come back with recommendations that our participants can go home and implement, or at least start the process of implementation.
Vashti, what can you add to Rodney's response?
I endorse entirely what Rodney has said, and I'd just like to add, for this workshop, we don't believe that people around the region will just come and sit down, drink your coffee, and listen to speakers from all these international organizations. We have created simulation exercises, and they're going to do in-depth country analysis of the legislation in relation to the digital economy, in relation to Barbados, Trinidad, St. Vincent, and Antigua, and also present this to an expert panel that is going to analyze the feasibility of recommendations so that we have what I would say tangible and credible way of moving forward. And this will also inform us of what countries in the Caribbean have identified as their priorities, what they need. And we, with the Commonwealth Secretariat and CTU, are going to now work on making that a reality.
Well, I'm a lot more confident now that this workshop will see the kinds of success that we're talking about here indeed. And I want to thank both of you for joining me this morning, Rodney Taylor, Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, and Vashti Maharaj, who is an advisor, Digital Trade Policy and Trade, Oceans and Natural Resources Directorate with the Commonwealth Secretariat. The workshop concludes today, and certainly after that, thereafter, we will see further action in the respective communities. That's great news. Thanks both of you indeed for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you as well, Pearson. Thank you.
You're very welcome indeed.